Welcome back to the second part of tonight's France 24 debate on the day of those concessions on the part of Victor Yanukovych. We ask whether the Ukrainian president at this stage can still survive, a question that's being addressed tonight by my guests. I'm joined by NIVAT, who's a freelance war reporter, also by Philippe de SUREMAIN, the former French ambassador to the country, by Natalia, who's the president of the Institute for Democracy and Cooperation, also by GARMAS, who's a member of the Euro-Maidan collective, and we're joined down the line from Kiev by Oleksiy PLOTNIKOV, who's the head of the European Centre for a Modern Ukraine. We were talking just a moment, NIVAT, you mentioned the role that Vladimir Putin had played so far. He was very cautious speaking tonight in Brussels, and I'd like to put that to Oleksiy PLOTNIKOV. The Russian president speaking in Brussels tonight said that whoever was in charge, even if the Ukrainian opposition took power, the loan that Moscow had offered to Ukraine back in December to the tune of $15 billion would stand. Is that a sign, do you think, that Ukraine's Russian ally is taking its distances?
It's a normal reaction of Russian president. First of all, the relation between Russia and Ukraine is not relation with Mr. Yanukovych and Mr. Putin. It's relation between, it's bilateral relation. It's relation between two countries. And I think that it's normal to continue relation in the area of financial support, in the area of economic cooperation, and so on. But I can see possibility for our opposition to go to power. It's impossible. But in general, it's not in accordance with the personnel of new Prime Minister of Ukraine. I think that it's normal position of Mr. Putin. I agree with Mr. Putin to continue cooperation between two countries and to development of financial and other sphere of cooperation.
Philippe de SUREMAIN, how do you read what the Russian president had to say tonight?
But I think the Ukrainian crisis is extremely a headache, I suppose, for the Kremlin. And I don't will raise who is responsible from outside the idea of plot. I think it's not the right answer to this question. And of course, it would be a good thing to come back to what Gorbachev proposal of Gorbachev of the common house, and to recognize from both sides that we have a common neighbor. This was not the case, and it would be extremely dangerous, and for Russia and for the EU, to transform Ukraine as a battlefield. I think it's the core of Europe, and our common interest is to build a large Europe, which allowed us to play our role in the new world.
GARMAS, as a member of the Euro-Maidan collective, we hear there about the battlefield that Ukraine has been between the EU and Moscow and so on. Is that still what this is about? Because it was how it began. But from inside your collective, what is it about now? Is it still about joining signing the pact with the EU?
Not at all. Well, actually, of course, it started like that. It's not really about Russia either, in the end, because people are fighting for human rights, to eradicate corruption, to be able to live in a free live in a free country. These are the values that people are fighting for. It's about their country, not about the neighbors. But if I can come back to the loan, it makes perfect sense for Putin to keep the loan, just because if you analyze it in depth, first, the gas prices, they are meant to be reviewed quarterly. So obviously, every time the prices are reviewed, Putin has an extra means of pressure on Ukraine. And also, in regard of the loan, it's a $15 billion loan, that's true. And government bonds, I think 5% interest rate as far as I remember. And the first part of the loan must be repaid in 2 years. And obviously, this first part, Ukraine is not going to be able to repay this sum of money, this massive sum of money immediately. In other words, what this means that whoever is going to be the next president is going to have to ask Russia for sort of help and to push the date.
Well, just a quick reminder, of course, that you can continue, you can take part in this as well. One tweet there on Twitter: classic Soviet reaction to diffuse crisis. Fire MP change government and NIVAT, I suppose one of the questions is what the outside world should be doing, what Russia or the EU can do as the violence gets worse on the streets of Kiev. Is there anything that should be done from outside at all?
I can't solve political situations, but I would just like to add that, in fact, Russia is, Russia has the same classical reaction than always, and it's the geopolitical importance of being the neighbors. But Russia, by providing, lending this money to Ukraine, is just doing what the EU is not capable of doing.
It did not put the money on the table.
The EU did not put the money because the EU is so exhausted by what it gave already to Greece, is so exhausted by many other things. And EU, may I just remind to the viewers that this agreement that was supposed to be signed in November, that is the problem, was just the pre-agreement, the beginning of the pre-agreement, and it was supposed to be signed with Belarus, with Azerbaijan, and with Kazakhstan, and Georgia also. So with Georgia it will probably be signed, but with Belarus already the EU said that it would not be signed. The same with Azerbaijan.
The truth is, Philippe, that the European Union had very little to offer Ukraine.
Absolutely.
We have offered quite a lot from the beginning. The problem was that European Union is very attractive, but is ready to help on the condition that major reforms has to be done. And it's if real reforms would have been adopted, in that case, I think the help could have come. And don't forget that the IMF has done a lot for Ukraine. But if the economy is not well managed, if nothing is done, of course, Ukraine is falling in default.
And this is the problem, Natalia.
I agree with my distinguished counterparts.
The economy has been badly handled. Major reforms that should have been made have not been made.
Yes, and that EU has practically nothing to offer Ukraine now.
But on the question of Victor Yanukovich's shepherding of the economy.
I would add with such maybe politically incorrect statements, which I like to make, that the only profit for EU in getting Ukraine is measured by the detriment Brussels, some not very wise officials claim or think they make against Russia. And you know that Yanukovych, I've from the first mouth, not from Yanukovych, but from the experts very close to them, I heard that he never read in Ukrainian and in Russian the text 900 pages of this agreement. When it was translated and offered him, he couldn't speak for 2 days.
Yeah.
When he understood what he was to sign.
That on this
and I would say that not signing this hasn't changed Ukraine's future at all, because the options are still there, future, both Russian or Assad. But what now Maidan came to with stones, cocktail Molotov, it started with students. I saw these faces. They had illusion that they immediately would get visas with
I'd like to put that point.
Just declared that
the point you just made to
Romanians and Bulgarians
Philippe, your reaction.
You forget that this agreement was the result of a very long negotiations, very seriously done. And on the Ukrainian side, there were excellent specialists who did the work and they did the job. So if the president himself doesn't know what is negotiated, there is a problem. And that he discovered on the eve of the signature the nature of the document, that is really, it's amazing.
But that's why there is a profound, deeply revolution right now, revolt, discontent in Ukraine. And that's why nothing will be solved tomorrow by changing the prime minister.
I think
nothing.
No.
But will it be solved by changing the president?
Well, it has. Well, I think. Well, the presidential election are supposed to be in 8 months. and it would probably have to be earlier.
And Yanukovych
We'll
was
see.
elected according democratic standards, and EU recognized that these have been normal, good.
But given what's happened on the
relations.
ground,
So
Anna Garmash,
he is not
from
obliged
within the
to resign at
Euro-Maidan
all.
collective, can you imagine Victor Yanukovych staying in position until the next planned elections? Is that going to work?
Hardly. This clearly has no support among the protesters, just because it would be the first step, actually, because what the protesters want is the change of society, the change of regime. It's not that the change of a head. This wouldn't be enough. It's not the change of government.
It started with
This
these
is the core
desires.
of
Still
the
like
question.
that, believe me,
Now,
still
not
is.
now.
But offering
It
to
is.
change the prime minister and the vice prime minister,
Of course,
offering
I
this to
agree
the
that people were
opposition.
dissatisfied with the system of power,
Oh, believe me,
corruption,
they still
etc.
are.
So
Well,
that's
one
why
of the tweets coming
they're
into us, in
thinking,
fact,
but nowadays, what they see on Maidan, these Boeviks who now control the Maidan,
They don't control the
they
Maidan.
reveal
This is
no
just
job,
Maidan.
no
And
The
the
rest of the
Putin.
country
One-
is in turmoil.
I'd like to bring in Oleksiy
Cocktail
Plotnikov,
Molotov,
who's
police of every European country, democratic country, would reacted differently.
Oleksiy
not
Plotnikov joining
as
us
now,
from
the
Kiev.
power.
We saw that tweet just now, the Ukrainian president pushing his prime minister off a cliff to save his own neck. The question, I suppose, is whether this can be stopped with anything short of Victor Yanukovych's resignation. There is nothing now that will satisfy the protesters apart from that fundamental change. Now, we're obviously having problems with our line to Kiev. And NIVAT, we've seen, we were just a moment, Natalia reminding us, the demands were much different, the types of protesters were much different. And as with so
But
many
it's always
revolutions in the
case,
past,
everywhere.
the revolution,
It
the
changed,
demands change,
absolutely,
the demands grow.
change. And in the case of Ukraine, it shows just how profound, how deep there is a discomfort.
Yeah.
And the president and people working with him should just take that into account. The opposition should also take that into account. But the problem, to pick, how do we say that in English? It's
Impasse.
Yes, it's not possible to find a solution right now because none of the sides have the solution. They have to get to a compromise. It's not going to come overnight.
And one of the key problems for Anna Garmash, for the Euro-Maidan collective, one of the key questions will be how the opposition react. They've been offered these concessions. One of the main opposition leaders was offered the premiership over the weekend. He's turned it down. The protesters are keeping a very close eye on what those opposition leaders are doing.
Yes, of course, because these are the ones who, they do not really represent the protesters, but they sort of are the heads that people can actually see. And the thing that there is a major difference actually between the revolution 2004 and the revolution right now. What's this difference? 2004, people had a leader they believed in, and they were hoping that he would help to change everything fairly fast. This time, people do not trust anymore. They do not trust their leaders anymore. They think that they have to do everything for themselves and change the society for themselves. And this is why they do keep a very close eye on what the opposition leaders are doing. But they try to actually influence them. The people are trying to be an actor in this game this time.
And I think internet has played a huge role.
As in so many revolutions.
And that
of the last
reminds
years.
me what happened in December 2011 in Moscow.
Yeah, but in Moscow, you see, the protest didn't last for such a long time.
No.
I mean, I'm quite impressed by the tenacity of the protester in Ukraine. And this could never happen and last without the common help of the common people.
Yeah.
Which make me think that it is really something which is the sign of something more profound that the Ukrainians will have to solve.
Well,
Is there any
it
rowing
is
back
true
from this taking
and
of power by the
untrue
people?
simultaneously, because the situation is complex. That
Yes, it
we
is.
all
It's
agree.
really-
It is.
And
Realize that.
people who are interviewed, they say that just a few 100 meters of Maidan, people are sitting in restaurants there, the shops are open, etc. As in Russia, you
was the
mentioned
same in Moscow.
you mentioned the protests after the Duma elections in 11. there are many protest emotions in Russia too, but the protesters in Altai, Krasnoyarsk, Siberia have totally different demands with regard to governments, as Bolotnaya Square, etc., liberal. If Bolotnaya leaders declare that Russia must return to the 90s, etc., the rest of the country is dissatisfied that the turn was not as radical as they want. So it's
what you are saying is
I'm
that
not comparing with the Ukrainian situation, because I agree with my debaters here that at the beginning there was a general feeling that this power is too corrupted, it's bureaucratic, it's unsatisfied. So Western values as idealistic interpretations of them as democracy, well, they don't know that such pure values do not exist anywhere. And many say that postmodernist Europe is stopped already being as attractive.
Do you think the president should stay in power, and do you think it will solve the problem?
No, I think it's very difficult now to judge, and I would not dare to
I'd like to put the question as well to...
But I think many experts in Ukraine think that Yanukovych should be more firm, that
the concessions were too much.
Yes, too much.
I'd like to put the question to Oleksiy Plotnikov. They can join us now from Kiev. We've got you back. That question to you, we've been talking about the extent to which the people have made themselves heard, the length of that protest. Is it the case now that Victor Yanukovych has no choice but to go?
We have we have a regular president election more than 1 year at the March of 2015, and I can see necessary to have an extraordinary presidential election.
You think he can hold on until then?
The process of normalization was started this day, and I think I can see the necessary. We have a situation with regular election, and for regular election, why not? Exist some candidates, exist Mr. Klitschko, exist Mr. Yatsenyuk, why not? But extraordinary election in the condition of post-revolutionary or during revolutionary is not normal election.
The question to NIVAT, can Victor Yanukovych survive until that next poll, or will he go, and if so, how quickly?
Well, to me, with such a level of violence already, with some people disappearing, being kidnapped, we don't know exactly what's happening, who is there, who is not there, the nationalists, the extreme right, the common protester, etc., which is what is traditionally happening in any revolution. But it has led us to such an extent here in Ukraine that Yanukovych cannot really keep on running the country the way he has so far. And he has showed that to us in the last 24 hours. He is trying his best to find something to offer to the others, to the opposition. The opposition is turning it down. So what can happen next?
Philippe de SUREMAIN, I'd like to put the same question to you. Will Victor Yanukovych survive, and how long for?
Ideally, it would be good to keep the next elections at a proper date. But I'm not sure that it would be possible, because, as you said, in the public opinion is extremely impatient. There is an exasperation against the corruption, and the use of violence is certainly one of the elements which explain why people are staying so long. Because to stay 2 months in such a conditions,
in the winter,
it cannot be explained only by the pressure of some extremists who exist, of course, but extremists there are also on the other side. I just wonder how. I think it would be very systematic to see the situation as two sides. What is happening among the party of regions? It's well known that there are some deputies, members of parliament, who are in a disarray. As you have just said, among the oligarchs, certainly they have second or third thought. So it's extremely difficult to have a clear view of the situation. So it's not only from the opposition, but also inside the power now.
Anna Garmash, they say that a revolution becomes successful when the demonstrators lose their fear. Has the Euro-Maidan collective lost its fear?
I suppose we have lost this fear on the night of the 30th of November. I don't know if you can remember.
This is the night when the crackdown turned violent.
Yes, exactly. This was the first violent night when the peaceful protesters, actually mainly students, were violently dispersed during the night. We could see videos of those because we are lucky to live in the time where we can get videos made by people immediately, very quickly, so we could see, like a few hours later, violent, horrible videos, people shouting, absolutely cruel. That was, to me personally, that was a horrifying experience. And after that, we could actually see the true face of this power. Obviously, people were unhappy before to see, the massive palace that the president has, whereas a lot of the people in the country actually live in extreme poverty. That's obviously a difficult thing to bear. But seeing this violence that has escalated a lot more, that's even harder.
Natalia, whatever one thinks of the rights or wrong of the protest movement in Ukraine, the types of protesters that are now on the streets, the varied aims of the protesters, looking from outside, one can't help but think that they say that a revolution is impossible until it becomes inevitable, that what had seemed impossible now actually seems inevitable, whether you like it or not.
Probably yes, but still there are always chances. And history teaches us that there are some turns, like with chemical weapons with Syria. All experts, Russian experts, military experts, secretly told me that next week there will be a strike over Syria.
And the world rode back.
There was some way out found. As far as violence, I agree with Anna that that night when Berkut attacked the remaining about 3,000 or 4,000 of students there.
Yes,
Maidan
it was
would
at 4 o'clock at night, so yes.
But nowadays, of course, like in Syria, started as peaceful demonstrations against Assad
Is a
regime,
civil war.
and then
In Syria.
absolutely the extremists have outdone all the sins of Syrian government with atrocities. As I saw terrible, horrible videos of Boyeviks from Western Ukraine committing the same tortures, etc., etc. So it's gone very far, of course, and to appease, to relax the situation, it takes some very original firm like Columbus egg,
But
But do we have such a person in Ukraine?
Exactly.
I don't think.
It's gone
I don't
very
think
far.
we do have. And Yatsenyuk, I heard some experts saying that he would probably like to take this position, but he understands that without the support of Maidan,
someone, yeah,
he can't agree because he would be named traitor,
In
etc.
the meantime,
so
Anna
they
Nivat,
are not.
Well, there should be someone
there
with
is
a vision.
Until someone with a vision appears,
Accumulated
should Victor
political
Yanukovych decide to
force.
revert to repression, having attempted concessions, does he have the means at his disposal, the army and the police, to stamp this down at this stage? Should he decide to try?
I am not sure that Yanukovych controls 100% now, as we speak now, the police and the army the way he used to control them. I am not sure. I think people in Ukraine are asking themselves questions, including policemen and army servicemen.
Anna Garmash, from inside the collective, what is the feeling about the length of time that it will take?
It's hard to say, it really is. I really do hope, well, I've heard myself, I don't know how reliable my sources are, but I've heard as well that the heads in the army do have a lot of doubts. They need guarantees, obviously, to go against the government. So far, they're just afraid. So they're doing what they're told.
Well, we continue to follow with great interest, of course, from outside what happens in Ukraine. Thank you to all of you for having been with us tonight. It is 56 minutes past 7. Thanks to all my guests. Also to Oleksiy PLOTNIKOV, who joined us tonight from Kiev, and who wasn't here in the studio with us. In just a few moments, a wrap of the very latest headlines, and I'll be back with you soon. Good night.
Beyond Business.
Doing good is good for business. That's the thinking behind corporate social responsibility, a term increasingly used by companies, but doesn't make them better global citizens. We head to China, where scandals have put the spotlight on businesses behaving badly.
Beyond Business, en France 24, en France24.com.